what is the biggest difference between real estate and constructions from a finance and accounting standpoint? What are the things that really you're paying attention to?
Well, first of all, from a leadership standpoint, it's all about
Bona Allen is a seasoned executive with over 40 years of financial and operational leadership in real estate construction and investment. He is a former senior vice president and CFO at Kajima Building Design Group, leading financial strategy for major projects nationwide. Bona also serves on industry and nonprofit boards and is a frequent speaker on executive leadership.
You've been a CFO for like 2 decades. So how have you seen the role evolve? And do you feel like it's getting easier or harder?
So yes, it's evolved a lot. And a lot of it, I think, is a combination of new technologies, but also taking people that have visibility within the company and outside the company, not just on a financial realm, but on operations.
So as a CFO, when you start a new role, how are you able to determine the cycles that you're currently in? So what really shaped your approach to leadership?
2 things. 1, the mistakes I made. And 2,
Today's episode is brought to you by Insight Software, which provides AI-powered financial reporting solutions that can save you from spreadsheet sludge and give you time back for weekend fun. With Spreadsheet Server, before they become problems and make faster, smarter decisions. Visit insightsoftware.com/reporting. I will drop the link in the show notes. Welcome back to the Diary of a CFO podcast, the podcast where finance leaders share the lessons, challenges, and wins that shape their careers as well as their organizations. I'm your host, Wassia Kamon, and today I'm super delighted to have with me Mr. Bona Allen. Welcome to the show.
thank
Bona.
you. Happy to be here. And you're seasoned, and some would call me highly seasoned.
I love it. And that's why my first question for you is the fact that you've been a CFO for like 2 decades. So how have you seen the role evolve? And do you feel like it's getting easier or harder?
Well, actually, it's closer to 3 decades now. So yes, that's part.
3 decades.
Highly
Okay.
seasoned, if not a little spicy, maybe. It's evolved a lot. And a lot of it, I think, is a combination of new technologies, but also taking people that have visibility into all aspects of it within the company and outside the company, not just on a financial realm, but on operations, and then looking to see where the company's, where we've been and where we're going. So we're using technology to be more efficient so that it's not so much generating the numbers, it's more determining what the numbers mean, analyzing the numbers, and having your staff analyze the numbers so that we can take that information and help see around the corner, help see where the company's going. And on the macro side, looking whatever economy where we are, whether it's a certain market, geographic market, or product-based market, to see where the economy is going, where our business is going, and where our companies are going. So it's really about looking to the future. I think that it's always been part of the CFO role, but now with technology becoming or helping bring efficiencies to bear, then I think we're able to do that, meaning the strategic aspect of it, a lot more effectively and efficiently.
So when you think back at your first CFO role, what would you say are some of the things that helped you get that role compared to getting into a CFO role like 3 decades later?
My first CFO role, I had been the top finance person for a while with a Dutch-owned company here in the U.S., and it was big. We had real estate holdings and real estate developments across the country, across the U.S. And that was I started there in the late 80s, I guess, and then the savings and loan crisis hit. The real estate markets fell apart, so we had to work out of a lot of these troubled assets. And so I met somebody in that process who later was involved in taking a company public. And this company was buying hotel properties, and the company was structured as a real estate investment trust. We stayed connected, and he brought me in as the CFO. And that was my first CFO role, was for a publicly traded company. I had no idea what I was doing.
Thanks for admitting.
And so fortunately, we had really good advisors and corporate securities counsel to sort of lead me along there. But in some respects, it's consistent with how the CFO role has changed, how you find new CFO roles. Some things haven't changed. It's all about networking and meeting the right people. And then also the technology aspect of it. Looking at the CFO role, technology can bring in efficiencies. When you're a CFO looking for a new role, I think the technology brings in inefficiencies because, with the AI aspect of it, reviewing resumes, and a lot of times you applying for something online, you may never get a response. So that's where it's all about relationships and networking and building relationships so that when we are looking for a new role, then we can let our network know and have eyes and ears on the ground helping you look.
I really like what you said, because basically, even though the role itself evolved, how you get the role has not really changed. And it's really about networking and showing up as like that perfect.
Right. That's right.
Now, you have been in real estate constructions, and I just really want to understand what is first the biggest difference between real estate and constructions from a finance and accounting standpoint. But when you wake up as the CFO of a real estate construction company, what are the things that really you're paying attention to? The things that you keep checking because they may have an impact on your expenses or your forecast.
Well, first of all, from a leadership standpoint, it's all about people. So that's where, regardless of the company or the industry, I think it's all about leading people and making sure that they have the tools that they need to be successful. And then looking to the future again, I mean, the strategic aspect of, this is where we are today, but where are we going? I think that's just critical. The differences between real estate and construction, I think maybe some of the biggest differences are the way the companies and the projects are financed. In other words, in the real estate business, real estate development especially, each project has its own financing. And as the finance leader, you're heavily involved in financing those projects. And they have a number of different structures that can evolve as well. Whereas on the construction side, your clients are the ones that are financing the projects. So as the CFO or finance leader, then we're more worried about working capital. How do we make sure that we have the working capital to build these projects? And then making sure also that the contractual or the contracts between the general contractor and the client, payment terms are critical as well. And so what you don't want is the general contractor is to be subject to paying out money to your subcontractors before you get paid. And that's where there's pay when paid clauses, so that you're not obligated to pay your subcontractors until you get paid from your client. I think that's sort of the biggest difference offhand. Beyond that is looking to the future. Again, I keep going to the future aspect and looking forward because, as accountants, the people that are based in accounting, our tendency is to keep our head down and just do the numbers, right? Where I started years and years ago. But, pretty soon, especially with the cycles, every industry has cycles. Real estate and construction, the cycles can be brutal. And so one thing I've learned after all these times and all these different cycles is you have to have a plan B. What happens if we're building office buildings and all of a sudden the office building market dries up? What's next? What do we do then? And so you have to have a fallback position to say, okay, well, if office buildings slow down, then we'll build something else or develop something else. What would that be?
And you have been through a couple real estate crises, right? The first one where you became CFO, and then there was a real estate crisis in 2008. Do you think we are due for another real estate crisis soon? Or what are some of the factors that now you realize impact the real estate market?
I guess it depends on the market segment because, there's always whatever it is. It could be, again, office buildings or single family homes, multifamily homes, retail, distribution, manufacturing, all these different segments. There, at any given point, there's ups and downs. Each one is going up or down, and some of it depends on geographic markets. There's in the Southeast for a long time here recently, very, very strong from a construction standpoint and real estate development, where perhaps other geographic segments of the U.S. were not. And so it can be in the real estate markets, there's a term called the rolling recession. So it just depends on the market. Things could go up and down at different times. So right now, there's a housing crisis, and it's been in the headlines a lot. Is we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough housing that people can afford. So that is a crisis. Part of the problem there is just the cost, whether it's the land cost or the commodities to build these properties. On the affordable housing side, where we're build housing that people in middle to lower income levels can afford, that I saw something recently. They're upwards around 7 to 10 million units short in the U.S. So then the question is, well, how do we solve that problem? And so that's where some of the governmental incentives come in, but overall, it just depends on the segment. A lot of times things will be overbuilt. So that's, a cause for slowdown. But sometimes there are external factors like tariffs, that could raise the commodities prices, whatever it is, wood, steel, concrete, whatever it takes to build. And so, and then, so there's, at any given point, we could be in different portions of a cycle for different, or not commodities, but different market segments.
I like how you talked about it could be different segments and different cycles. So as a CFO, when you start a new role, how are you able to determine the cycles that you're currently in? And when you think about the future, what you should be planning on. So let's say you're starting today. What are those things? What are those documents or conversations you may have to understand the cycle you're in? What is really at stake so you can better plan for what's coming next?
You look at whatever it is you're developing or building, how competitive is it? I mean, what is the level of demand? And so for a while, there was high level of demand for distribution warehouses. And so there's a lot of those being built entering like 2019, 2020, entering into COVID, and then it just exploded. And because of the internet commerce, I mean, markets become overheated, and there's all these, whatever the product is, in that case, it was warehouse distribution facilities, and they're being built everywhere. And then you can look at the absorption rates, how much of these properties are being leased at any given, what's the vacancy rate? When there are all these properties being built, it's time to step back and say, okay, well, time out. How many do we really need? And on the real estate development side. But then you get into manufacturing, and I think manufacturing tends to be in cycles too, and especially any election cycle, things slow down, right? On the beginning of an election cycle. And when I was with Kajima Building Design Group, we anticipated that. So in 2023, we thought, well, okay, 24 is an election year. So, early 24, things will probably start slowing down. And they did. And so, and that group has an architectural and design aspect. That's how you can sort of see the leading indicators of when companies are starting to slow down and looking at new facilities or expanding existing facilities. On the front end of that, they'll start the architectural process and site selection. And so we saw it slowing down, and that's just how it works, and so through 2024, it was slow. But generally, after the election, it doesn't matter who's running, for president of the U.S., things generally pick up in December, January, February. It didn't this time because of the worry about tariffs this last cycle, but generally looking to the future, or when you're starting a new CFO role and you're trying to figure out where in the cycle the company is versus the market that the company is in, then I would say, look to see how competitive that is, wherever you are. And if there are only a few of your companies bidding on these, trying to get deals, that means maybe there's not enough deals out there. So there could be some runway. Whereas if there are lots of deals being built, well, maybe it's time to be careful, and because things may slow down pretty quickly.
Love it. But that also means that you're having conversations, not just within your finance and accounting team, but pretty much with everyone, right? To understand those leading versus lagging indicators.
Yeah, I mean, and this applies to all businesses, I think, is trying to stay on top of the macroeconomic situations, global geopolitical, there's so many different components that come into where our businesses are heading. And so that's where you have to be, because there's so much, the news cycle these days is just crazy, right?
Oh, God.
And so, yeah. And so, but you have to be selective and try to keep an eye out for where you think the economy is going, and where could be the pitfalls, where could be the road bumps.
So what are KPIs that matters to you, like in your world, and how do you build your team to really support you in understanding the macro, micro, what's going on in the business, the KPIs? Like, how do you build a team to support you as a CFO?
Again, I mean, it's everything we just talked about. Where do you think the business is going? And also taking into account the latest technologies, that you're using the right technology. I hate the phrase, we've always done it this way, right?
Oh, gosh.
Right. So, because there's so much great technology out there, but this is not an original thought or quote, but like to be on the leading edge, but not the bleeding edge, right? And so bring in the right technology because it changes daily. But, if you're still processing any type of paper, you're probably way behind,
Anytime.
right? And
Yeah.
so from an accounting standpoint, everything should be digitized and in the cloud, but you have to be careful about security, right? And make sure you're highly secure and your service providers are taking the right security protocols. But as far as building the team, making sure that you have people that want to learn, that are curious, that are interested in helping the company grow and helping themselves grow. And I love when I was at Kajima, we brought somebody in who just wanted to do accounts payable. That's it. This person had previously been a manager, elevated to manager level, and she hated it. And that was not for her. So she just wanted to process accounts payable. And we had a lot of accounts payable that needed processing. And so sometimes you need people just to take care of the day-to-day stuff. But at one point, and we had a Teams meeting in person. This was, I guess it was right before COVID hit. And so we were in person or maybe right after. I've lost track of time now. But why are we still using Excel to process expense reports? And I'm like, amen. We need to do something different. Help with that? Sure, yeah. And so she formed a team and did the due diligence, and the team crossed all departments, right? We had some people from job sites. We had some people from different corporate departments, and they picked a solution, a digital solution in the cloud. And then she brought it to the executive group, and we agreed and we approved it. And then she picked a team to implement it. And so,
Nice.
so she's a leader and she wants to make things better, but day to day, she just wants to deal with accounts payable. And so what that did is she changed the company. I mean, for the better. It was a huge success. And it was a success for her personally too, because she was able to grow and lead a team, 2 different teams. And so I think as leaders, we have to be able to listen and give people opportunity and then ask questions. What is it you want to do? How can it help your career so that you can help yourself and help the company too? And that's a big way, I think. Number one, building a team, and to attract good people, they have to understand that the leader's mindset is open to this sort of thing. And secondly, is just as important, retaining the team, keeping them engaged. And so I think that's, there's a long answer to your short question of how do you pick the right team for the future. But I think some of these concepts cross industry lines.
Now let's take a quick break to talk about a problem most finance teams face. You spend hours wrestling with data from different systems, building reports manually, and by the time you are done, the insights are already outdated. That's where today's sponsor comes in. Insight Software gives your finance team AI-powered tools that automatically pull data together and deliver super fast insight. Don't leave your team stuck in spreadsheets. Let them flex their talents as strategic advisors who guide smart business decisions. I'm hosting a webinar in partnership with Insight Software this October 15th. It's called Get Out of the Reporting Rut. So visit insightsoftware.com/October to register and transform how your finance team operates. I'll also drop the link in the show notes.
Yes, they definitely do. And, when you think about AI, earlier you mentioned, your resume, right? Because with AI, everybody looks perfect. The resume looks all good, right? Because you can take AI, you can take the job description, you can take your resume and literally match them, and it looks like it's the perfect person for the job. But what you mentioned is, I want them to be curious. I want them to learn. I want to find that alignment between what they like and what I want them to do. So how do you get to do that now, knowing that everybody looks good on resume?
You mean picking the right people?
Yes.
That's where you have to talk to them. You have to get to know folks. I guess the vetting process, the first or second pass, that's where, you may think that somebody isn't a great fit on paper, but they could be a great fit from a personality standpoint. And, and again, this is an overused mantra maybe, but, hire for the future, right? And hire for the person and the fit and they can figure out the job, right? So I think that's where, it takes the personal interaction to get to know folks and have multiple people. I guess the term is interview, but it's really get to know folks, and have meetings with them. Now, for bigger companies, you have to boil this down into smaller groups, right? I mean, for a company that has 10,000 or more employees, then my view is the concepts are still the same. You just have to narrow it down into smaller teams so that you go through the same process.
Okay. And once a person come in from onboarding to really the long-term retention, what have been some of your go-to moves, if I can say, or your playbook to make sure they onboarded right and that they actually stay? Because I feel like it hurts to have turnover because you have to relearn and redo, and the team members are like, oh, I'm doing extra work, I'm burned out. What do you usually do to make sure that the onboarding and the retention part is really on point?
Yes, there needs to be a standard. Everybody's different. So what I've seen a lot of companies do, and I've lived it, is, there's a 2 or 3 day onboarding process and the people are inundated, and then that's it. There's no follow-up. So I think there should be some follow-up. And so because you sit down and you meet a lot of people and you go to different lunches, and actually the HR group at KBD did a wonderful job of really just bringing people in on a more casual basis, having a lunch in a big conference room and people from all different departments coming in and just spending a little time with the new people. But also I think it's just following up to say, okay, all right, 2 weeks ago, we showed you the ERP system. Let's have another refresher, or maybe, 2 or 3 months later. What I've also seen is in some cycle, maybe 90 days, somebody, whoever it is, 1 or 2 people will have a lunch with the new person and get their take on where things are. You're inundated with a couple of days, 2 or 3 days of onboarding. What have you forgotten? What do you need to know? What question?
Yeah, the only thing I could remember is what I ate for lunch.
That's right.
I
Because there's
agree.
so much, it's information overload, right? And so,
Yes.
especially now, again, getting back to technology, there's so many different technologies we have to know and on a daily basis, whether it's the expense reporting or whatever it is we use every day. And maybe you don't use everything every day, so you need to go back to something that you use once a month, need a refresher. Yeah.
And then as a CFO, you're overseeing multiple functions, right? You have accounting, treasury, probably FP&A, like there's tax, there's a lot within your function. How do you make sure that each function works well together?
And that goes beyond just the finance and accounting piece, right? Because we work with other departments too. It's developing relationships. I mean, construction is a good example in and of itself because, we've got all this work. The business is about building things that aren't in the office, right? And so I think it's important to get people that are office based out to the job sites. It's a great experience for everybody. It gets them on these job sites and in the dirt, depending on the type of job site, whether it's in the dirt in an office building or something else. But and it gets them outside of the office, and it gets the people that are on site, gives them a chance to get to know people that are in the office. And so, hopefully the term ivory tower does not apply anymore, but it might, at least conceptually, sort of personalizes all these different functions, whether it's finance, accounting, whoever else is in the office, and the people that are on the job site. And so I think it's developing relationships and open lines of communication. And this is where, especially now, I think there's a move, maybe I'm wrong, but I get the sense that there's a movement that some job functions and job departmental lines are being blurred, which is good, right? And so as opposed to specific silos firmly in place. And whereas, okay, well, I'm on the treasury side. I shouldn't have to talk to somebody on the HR side much or in risk management. But that's not true. I mean, we all work together and we've all got great ideas that we could share. And so, again, I get back to relationships, helping,
Okay.
encouraging, if not, maybe not mandating, but leading by example. I mean, if people see me working closely with people outside our department or see me going to job sites, then, hopefully they can take that example and follow.
Yeah, and I like the idea of going in and actually seeing how the work is so you can better understand the numbers. I always feel like it's so important, but I feel like sometimes people in FP&A may be the one doing it, but not necessarily people in accounting. So how do you also bring your accounting team along so they can also see it? Like how do you make sure that both on the accounting side or FP&A side, they're both business partners?
Yes, I think so. Because again, we're all on one team. It depends on the size of the company. I mean, each team could have, who can pick a number, it could be 10, it could be 100 people, right? So how do you cross-pollinate? I think it can vary by company. And also these days with geographically dispersed, then if you can't get together in person, then schedule a virtual meeting. This is something that came out of COVID era, especially early on. We started having daily progressed 2 or 3 times a week and then once a week, but check-ins. It's just to see how people are doing because not everybody has a family. Some people are alone. They live by themselves. And so it's as much, checking to see how people are doing as it is, tell me about, your job and the things that you're doing today. And so why not do the same thing? And also this is where you run out of things to talk about. And so,
Yes.
if we were, yes, I did all my accounts payable, I did all, my reporting and so we're done. Right. And so until tomorrow, but so then you have, themes, and this was not my idea, but crazy hat theme or, come and talk about your favorite vacation or something like that. So we could do the same thing across departmental lines. In the finance and accounting, special guest star and somebody from the design group or the construction group and would join the team's meeting and tell about the project that we're working on or whatever it is they do. And some are electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. And so that, and again, it's informative, but it also develops those relationships. So I think that's the key too, is to answer your question, how do you get treasury and FP&A and accounting and all those different functions together so that they can understand what each other does? Maybe you swap roles for a bit or cross-train.
Really like to understand what helped you develop your leadership style. I like how you think about bringing teams together. Was there a particular turning point in your career or specific events that help you think that way in terms of the CFO thinking of the future, but also everything is about relationship? Because when we go to school, I think like everything is about debits and credits or P&L analysis and variance analysis. And then you get into the world and you realize thinking about the future, making sure it's sustainable, but it's all rooted in people. So what really shaped your approach to leadership?
I guess things that jump-started different aspects of my leadership style. 2 things. 1, the mistakes I made, and 2, the difficulties in the cycles. When you're dealing with troubled times, then you're forced to do things. And a lot of times I did them wrong. I made big mistakes and I learned from those or tried to. And so my style is very collaborative. I mean, ultimately, it's not a democracy. I mean, you want to get different views and hear from different people before you make a decision. But as a leader, decision maker, you have to make those decisions. But at the same time, it's, I mean, I think we all make mistakes. And again, I'm seasoned and I've made a lot of seasoned mistakes. So I think that
Yeah.
that's, and I've learned from different people and different leadership styles. And so you sort of develop your own. I keep saying, yes, I'm seasoned because you can't say old anymore. I'm not, but I'm still highly immature. Right. So,
Really?
yeah. And I'm proud of my high level of immaturity.
So when was the last time you felt like you had no idea what you were doing?
I don't think it was early in the COVID era. I mean, that was such a was dealing with one of my parents fell ill and had been ill for a long time and then passed away in March of 2020. And so that was difficult. That was in North Carolina. So I came back to Atlanta just in time before everything shut down, just in time for the shutdown. And so, I don't think any of us knew what we were doing. And so then that gets to what we talked about earlier is making sure and having some empathy for your team. It's your family. Number one, your family, and then secondly, your team, your work team, and then out from there, the whole company. And then as leaders, we have to decide the direction that we're heading. And nobody knew. We had no idea. I was involved, helped the CEO have different scenario plans. What happens, because we had jobs from New York to California and all in between. And so we shut everything down, and then different areas go back to performing, and then working at different times. I mean, when you're building a 1 million square foot building, it's pretty easy to be, socially distant, right? I mean, you could be hundreds of feet away from the next person. And some of the buildings that we were building and were completing at that time turned out some were cold storage and super freezers that were used to store the vaccines. And so they were important to be finished. I think that, to answer your question, when was the last time I had no idea what I was doing? I mean, I think some people around me would say, "Oh, every day for Bona." But the biggest one I think was for during COVID, and we figured it out, but we were forced to because we were not going out of business. We were keeping going.
It's amazing to hear somebody, by the time you hit COVID here, you probably have been a CFO for 20 something years. And to hear you say, I had no idea what I was doing. But what are those things that keep you grounded in those times? Because yes, you went through COVID, there were real estate crashes. What are some of the things that keep you grounded when you have to lead through uncertainty? You literally have no clue what you're doing, but everybody is looking up to you for clarity and direction.
My immediate response would be, how do you stay grounded and not panic? Whatever we're doing, is it life or death? And generally it's not, right? And now at COVID time, it was. On a daily basis at a construction site, it can be, right? You have to be safe. These baseline is make sure everyone is safe, right? And then beyond that, it's not life or death. We've got a deadline coming up, or our business is falling off the map. Yes, we need to make sure people keep their jobs. I mean, that's close to life or death, right? Is getting people paid. And so setting priorities and looking to the future to make sure that our people are taken care of, what's important. And so I think it's really staying grounded is the mindset of taking care of people.
But what about yourself? How do you take care of yourself in those times?
Try to get outside as much as possible. I love water. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Some lakes in the Atlanta area, and I would love to get to the beach. And so, yeah.
My last two questions before I let you go. What would you say is the best career advice you ever received?
Well, stay networked, but also it's not just for yourself. Network so you can help others. I think that's more fulfilling a lot of times is when you could be working and, day to day plus family. And if we have children, there's a lot to worry about, but stay networking, but also network to help others find their next role. Because, at any given point, someone's looking for a job and they may be out of a job trying to figure out, how to pay the mortgage or the rent or buy groceries. Look out for other people too, help them. And so I think all that is not specific to career advice per se, more just a mindset, I think.
And so my last question for you, what is your favorite thing to do outside of work? I know you already mentioned you like water and hiking, but I'm curious, like on a Saturday, on a Sunday, where will I find you?
We don't do this often enough, but I bought, was a long time ago, a little boat. And so it's just a little motorboat that we keep on a lake north of Atlanta. Ideally, just be on the water on the little boat. It's on Lake Lanier, and Lake Lanier is, again, it is beautiful, but there's some giant boats out there. We have to get out early, and it's beautiful, and then we try to get back to the marina early so that we're not caught in all those giant waves from those big boats.
Oh, gosh. So now I know, since we are both in the Atlanta area, where I can go borrow a boat.
That's right.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was super, super helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation. It's always good to see you.
Same here. Thank you. And that's it for today's episode of The Diary of a CFO. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to like, review, subscribe, and share with others.
Our website is thediaryofaCFO.com. That's where you can find all the episodes, access all the guest profiles, see their bios, and the social media links. It is also the place where you can apply to be a guest on the podcast and have information about how you can sponsor the show. As always, if there is any topic you would like me to cover in the future, just email me at ask@thediaryofaCFO.com. See you soon.
Wondering if you're ready for the CFO role? Find out with a free CFO readiness scorecard at cfo.scoreapp.com.